Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports takes from around the country. Right now, we're with Colin Cowherd, where Tyreek Hill apparently called him a thug. I did not see this. I didn't know this, so I'm definitely excited to jump into this. But before we do, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this video if you enjoy it. It really helps with visibility, and it means everything to me, and it's completely free for you. So without further ado, let's get to it.
It's hurtful. Tyreek Hill of the Dolphins called me on Twitter. Well, formerly Twitter. It's now called X. I don't go to it much anymore. He called me a thug. That's a first. I've been called a lot of names, never been called that. I don't really respond to people who respond to my opinions. I tend to think they attack the messenger because my message hit a little too close to home. Miami, 23 years, no playoff wins. Last 9 against the Bills, 1-8. And of the 14 current playoff teams, they have the lowest strength of victory. Fact, fact, fact. Check, check, check. It took until week 16 for them to get a win versus a team over 500. Not sorry for not coronating you. The truth is, I like Miami. I really do. I like their offensive-minded coach. I like their defensive coordinator, Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb. Wilkins on the interior. Tyreek Hill's amazing. Jalen Waddle. I like Tua a lot. I think he's a really good guy. He's Dak, but a better, pure, softer thrower. A little smaller, better thrower. I like Miami a lot.
So this is interesting because this all kind of stemmed from what happened yesterday. If you didn't see, Colin, I actually made a video with it. Colin kind of went on a whole rant about how, the Dolphins want respect and that, what respect should he really give them? They haven't done anything. They're acting like they won a Super Bowl and they want their flowers. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people went into the comments and said, this is nonsense. This is BS. The Dolphins aren't asking for any type of respect whatsoever. They're not asking to be given anything. I don't live in Florida. I don't live in Miami. I'm not in touch with that fan base personally. But it was interesting because the fan base has found me at this point, and they gave some major pushback to that narrative. And so then I asked someone in the comments. I said, "Well, please let me know. Like, what do the Dolphins want? What is the media in that area saying? What is actually going on there?" And again, they kind of continue to be like, they're not really asking for anything. So what's interesting is this feels like a fake made up narrative that, and I'm not saying that Khan did this on purpose necessarily, right? I don't think he has to resort to, fake narratives like that. But I think for whatever reason, he got in his mind, the Dolphins want respect, right? And sometimes, we see a couple comments in the section in online or wherever, and we say like, oh, this is what everyone's saying, right? We do this all the time. We see a couple comments or we watch a news show where one person says the Dolphins aren't getting respect and they deserve respect. And then we say, see, everyone's talking about this. And it's like, this was one guy on TV and another 4 people on Twitter, So who the heck is everyone? We saw this with Trump in the election, not making this political whatsoever. But it's a great tactic when you just say, everyone's saying this. Did you hear what everyone's saying? And it's like, well, who is everyone? And now if you're popular enough and famous enough, well, sure, now everyone is talking about it because you just made it a topic. So it's not a bad, marketing tool or kind of, debate tool in that regard. But so it is interesting. But Tyreek Hill coming back and calling, Colin a thug, I think that's too strong. I mean, Colin isn't bullying anyone. He's not intimidating anyone. He's not sticking his chest out saying, you're nothing, I'm everything. That's more thuggish behavior. I mean, was he being, somewhat, I think if anything, Colin was being more tongue in cheek. And again, I am not, someone called me a Colin Cowherd shill or whatever. And it's like, no, listen, I really enjoy Colin's show and I watch it. I criticize him all the time. Some of his takes, I'm like, drive me crazy, especially I think when he gets, he gets too elitist. He like he does kind of see himself as somewhat superior. He goes back and forth between saying like, I'm just like everyone else. And also like, I eat, prime rib every single day, filet mignon and stuff like that. So, and it flies private and owns like, 5-6 different houses. So, which is fine. He has success by all means, live your life. But, I think he can be somewhat detached from reality. He definitely does he makes fun of the people on Twitter. He makes fun of the people on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's like, these are the people who are watching your content. So you're talking down to your audience. And I think it's, kind of unfortunate. And so, but for the most part, Colin is also, I think, is pretty fair with the players for the most part. And I can't speak on 10 years ago or how he was earlier in his career. I just mean more recently, within the last few years. And all my judgments based on Colin are truly based on the last few years. So, excuse me. So to call him a thug just seems like unnecessary and too strong. And I think words should have meaning. Um, I think, specifically if you're famous, and you actually have a following, because people really listen. People literally follow you. So if you're gonna call someone a thug, you're gonna call someone a word. I just think it should really, there should be repercussions. And I'm not saying negative or positive, but like it needs to actually mean something. And so to call him a thug is like, you better mean though than that he is truly a thug, that he is a bad person, that he is doing bad things, that he is by definition a thug. I just don't think, that's what Colin was doing. If anything, I think he was having more fun with the fan base and calling them out. I try to put it in my perspective, and again, I've kind of mentioned this before, but when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, they didn't get any respect. None. I mean, every single game they were winning, they just kept saying, look at their schedule, look at their schedule, so weak, so weak, so weak. Seriously, that's what they kept saying. And then even when we played in the playoffs games against Atlanta in the first game, they were like, oh my God, what a fluke victory. And they just continued not to get respect. Then they smoked Minnesota, still didn't get respect. And then they beat Tom Brady and they won and they kind of got respect, but it was like, this was just luck. This was a fluke, This was Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick not having a good defense or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it was still disrespect. And I personally don't recall the Eagles being like, you're a thug, Colin. Who are you? Because you easily could have been like, oh, the Eagles won't respect. And who are they? They haven't really done anything since Andy Reid and this and that. And so I don't personally see it. And everyone knows at this point, whether you're from Philly or not, that Philly has very combative media and very combative, fans and very intense fans and stuff like that. So if anyone was going to be fighting and calling people out like that, it would be Philly. And you just didn't really see it. So I don't really know what this like new war between Colin and Miami and the fans and stuff like that. I don't know what the expectations are. And again, if you are a Miami Dolphins fan or you are in touch with that media, please let me know in the comments below. What do the media and the fans and the franchise expect from the Dolphins? Okay? Because I know, like, for instance, last year when the Eagles were really, obviously doing great and playing great, we didn't start the season off with the expectations of winning a Super Bowl, but as the season began to unfold, we were like, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. Me, I try to become a little bit more balanced, and I'm like, well, listen, man, we got essentially a new quarterback, new coach, new everything. Like, I'm going to be grateful if we make it to the NFC Championship game. That's a good year for me. I'm happy. Then, of course, we start to get real good, and it's like, all right, you know what? Now I'm expecting to win the NFC Championship game, make it to the Super Bowl. If we lose to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm just not going to say that this was a failure, right? We lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. I'm not going to say that's a failure. Then we make it to the Super Bowl, and you're like, oh my God, this can happen, this can happen. And I had to fight myself. I was like, if they lose, I'm not going to say that this was a disappointment. Of course, I could be sad and upset that they didn't win, but I'm not going to say this was a bust. They blew it. Oh my God. And that's the way I look at it, because I know just getting to the NFC Championship is legit. Winning the NFC Championship is legit. Getting to the Super Bowl is legit. And coming one play away from winning the Super Bowl is legit. So you just can't say, as long, we either win or lose a Super Bowl. If we lose, it's a failure. If we win, it's a success. That's not the way I view it, personally. So with Miami, I don't know what Miami's expectations were. Before the season started, were they like, we got to get to the playoffs? Was it, we got to get to the AFC Championship? We got to get to the Super Bowl. Like, what are the expectations? And then as soon as the season started to unfold and they looked pretty good and seemed pretty competitive, has the expectations changed? Are you expecting, this is to the Miami Dolphins fans out there, are you expecting the Dolphins to win, to make noise in the playoffs? Do you believe in a Super Bowl? If it's the Dolphins versus the 49ers or the Dolphins versus the Ravens in the, at any point in the playoffs, if they lose, if the Dolphins lost to the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs, would you be upset in the sense of the Dolphins messed this up? They should have won. They could have won. Like, I really would love to know, like, what are your expectations? Or are you just like, no, man, we just want to, make the playoffs, have fun, win at least one playoff game. Because I really don't know. I don't know what you're expecting out there. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Please let me know in the comments below. But again, to say that Colin's a thug, I just think in this day and age, words mean more than they should. I like to just throw words around personally, right? Like I say words like thug all the time, and I say it like endearing, things like ghetto, thug, whatever, I use a lot of these words, not necessarily negatively, but sometimes negatively, of course. But it just seems like in the modern world right now, words, which is backwards, right? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt. We live in a world right now where words are like fierce, right? Words are violence. And Tyreek Hill knows that. He does know that. So to publicly call Colin Cowherd a thug, I just think is personally a little aggressive. Like, if you called him a joker or, whatever. And then also, I hate the comeback of, you've never played a sport. It's like, guys, I understand. And listen, I don't trust a lot of people's opinions who have not played sports on a massive public level. That is, in terms of, deep analysis of if they're adding some context and experience, that's fine. But when it comes to just like deep analysis of who's going to win or this or that, it's like, unless you've kind of competed, I do think sometimes your experience can be a little limited. The perfect example of this was, speaking of the Eagles again, post game, a couple games ago. I completely forget the one guy, but he hosts post game live with a couple other players. And this one ex-player was like, it's hard when you go through this gauntlet of playing, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the 49ers, that, you get to this game and you're just exhausted, and, mentally, you want to get there, but physically you just can't, that it's tiring. Now, this one guy who's never played the sport at a competitive level, never played hard, he says, well, if you, that's no excuse. If you can't get energized and ready to go, then, you don't deserve to be here. And it's just like, this is an ex-NFL player telling you that these kind of moments are exhausting, that no matter how hard you try to like bring your A game or bring the energy, sometimes you just can't, no matter how hard you try. It's not a lack of will. It's just, you have a finite level of energy. And so, sometimes you just expel it and you're tired, you're banged up, and you can't. So you have this non-athlete saying, what are you talking about? You're wrong. And it's like, this is an athlete who's lived it and experienced it. That's where I see the disconnect. So, and I get that. And that is a valid, criticism. And that's why I'm really grateful for my own personal athletic background. I've been coached, by actual professional athletes. I played semi-pro baseball. I played sports very competitively, baseball and basketball, more at the higher levels than the other sports. But I've been there, I've been in the competition. That's not to say that I know more than these NFL analysts or even some of these guys, because I do think you can know what you're talking about without playing the sport competitively, because you can understand the game and the sport so deeply. So I think when you start to break down things of that nature, that's fine. But when you start to break down the psychology of things and the experience of things, if you weren't an athlete and you didn't play competitively, if you don't know what it's like to really feel the pressure, if you don't know what it's really like to play in a game with a lot of fans screaming, really feeling that pressure on you, then you just don't necessarily know. So I think, I just don't think, though, that I think Colin Cowherd has earned the right to be not considered to be like clowned for not playing, in the NFL. Because then it's just like, well, what does that mean? That means only ex-NFL athletes or current NFL athletes are able to talk about the NFL? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Then all of the people watching these videos, all the people consuming sports content should just have no opinions then, right? We should just have no opinions whatsoever. And that's not true. And in fact, there's a lot of amazing elite Pro Bowlers and Hall of Famers and Super Bowl champions who I guarantee you do not know the game as well as a fan. I'm not saying it's the norm, but it absolutely exists. I played with players who are brilliant and are 10 times better, 100 times better than I will ever be. but I understood the game and I understood the philosophy and the psychology and all of it way deeper. They were just athletic freaks and they were just bigger, stronger, faster. So they could just do the things that I couldn't do. So, but I understood it better. They made mental mistakes that I would have never made, So, you can't just be so quick just to call people out because they haven't played. I think it's a balance, it's a nuance. I think you have to prove yourself, and I think Colin has proven himself. So I think his criticism is kind of low blow, honestly, and kind of bush league. But that's my views. What do you guys think? Do you think Colin Cowherd is a thug? Do you think Tyreek Hill was totally okay to call him out? And also, again, as I've said earlier, Miami Dolphins fans, please let me know what the expectations are for the Dolphins. I truly don't know, and I would love to know so I can learn more about what your fan base is actually expecting out of them. That's all I got for you today. Please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really, really helps with visibility. And please, please, please subscribe. We are building an amazing community here. I would love to see you here. We get going in the comments. We have a lot of fun. We get into fights, discussions, arguments. We do it all. I read every single comment. So please definitely like, share, and subscribe. It means everything to me, and it's completely free for you. Thanks so much, and see you next time.